Hello, Watch Chit Chat here with your reminder that life is short by the watch. Today we've got 14 dress watches in front of us, and I'm going to be doing a shootout to test them against each other and go head to head and find out which one is the best dress watch at the end. Please feel free to add your comments on which one you think it is. It can be quite blurry these days because the way watches have evolved is that sports watches and dress watches can be quite closely linked in that they're very versatile and can be used for most occasions. So, to define the criteria, I'll be going off number 1, case and profile. I believe a dress watch should be slim because it's necessary to fit under the cuff. 2, the dial and the cleanliness. It should be a minimalist design and traditionally time only. Third criteria is the strap. So traditionally, dress watches were on leather straps. However, we can see that they've moved towards bracelets in some iterations. They can be in any type of material, whether that be stainless steel, but a preference would be towards precious metals.
I love gold!
And lastly, they need to be able to elevate and add a level of sophistication to the occasion. So now that we have the criteria set out, let's get into it. So we're going to keep it fairly no frills today and dispose of any whiz-bang graphics or anything. And I've actually organised these watches and paired them up in terms of similarities. So first up, we've got the Panther and Fears, and that's largely because of the price point. We've got the 2 JLCs, the Master Control and the Reverso. We've got the Furlan Murray Outback Elegy and a Tissot Gentleman, I believe. Got 2 sporty dress watches, which is the Grand Seiko White Birch and the Datejust 36 with a Wimbledon dial. And 2 more sporty, versatile watches. They both come with leather straps as well. So we've got the Cartier Santos Large and the Bulgari Octo Roma. Then we've got these 2 vintage watches, Cartier, and we've got the Cartier Tank Louis and the Cartier Tank Basculante. And then the 2 Vacheron Constantines, being the American 1921 and the Overseas on the leather strap. So let's start off with the affordable watches, and that's the Furlan Murray and the Tissot Gentleman. I think while this meets a lot of the criteria, and in fact I prefer the minimalist dial of this watch, I'd say that the finishing of the Furlan Murray is much more elevated and does add that little bit of sophistication. Yes, the dial's a bit busy, but it's also a manual one watch as opposed to a quartz watch. So the Furlan Murray takes out round 1. Then we go to the 2 JLCs. Now, both of them hit the criteria, but I believe that the Master Control actually probably has a fair few many complications. Yes, it's round and does hit the criteria, but if you look at the Reverso, once you flip that and change that strap out to a black with a quick release system, that becomes very dressy. So, that wins round 1. These 2 watches here. This is a tough pick because for me, while this is a quartz watch and is a pink dial, I find it more attractive than the Fears because the Fears does deviate from that classic dial. However, I must say that the Cartier is probably more of a bracelet than it is a watch, so I'll give it to the Fears. The 2 Vacherons. I think this is a pretty clear choice, largely because for me, the Overseas, whilst it comes in leather, it's more an imposter than it is a traditional dress watch. So this has to, of course, go to the Vacheron Constantine 1921. Didn't think I'd be tossing out a Overseas so easily. Then we've got the Datejust 36 Wimbledon and the Grand Seiko. Now, I think this is also a case of both of them are on bracelet. However, the Grand Seiko is probably more of an imposter. It does look really good on a leather strap and can be dressed up, but it does have a bit more size to it. And of course, the Datejust 36 Wimbledon. It does have a bit of a flashier dial and this fluted bezel, but the proportions just seem to be a bit more suited for a dress watch, being the 36mm. So the Jubilee bracelet also adds to that. So that takes out the round and the White Birch is gone. Next up, the 2 sports dress watches, Cartier Santos and the Bulgari Octo Roma. This is neck and neck. Now, what I would say is that the Santos does come in the strap, and it's a quick, easy change strap. So I'll just switch that out now, and you can see. Now, whilst I don't personally like this strap, I like the fact that it's so easy to switch out. And what I would say is if it came in the blue strap, like a traditional Cartier or a black strap, that would look amazing. So this is probably the closest battle, except I like the classic dial and the easy switch out. The only reason why the Roma loses out is because that bracelet is very difficult to get changed, but also it doesn't have as much history as the Cartier. So the history of the Cartier wins out. Octorama gone. This is the tough choice. Both tanks, both very classic design languages, very consistent, similar case shapes, and just the difference in size. Very thin. In fact, they hit every single criteria. So it's very hard to split. But what I would say that the Cartier Tank Louis is going for it is that it's precious metal in 18 karat gold. So for only that reason alone, the Louis gets it and the Basculante flips out. Round 2. So those of you who are a bit smarter and more astute than I am probably realised at the early stages that I picked 14 watches to begin with. And that's not a divisible even number, so I'm left with 7. So let's think on the fly here. Clearly, there's no competition between the Furlan Murray and the Rolex Datejust. They're in different leagues. So let's get rid of that one, the Furlan Murray, and replace that with the tank. So here we are. Now, I think I'm going to end up with the same problem on the next round, but let's get on with it. So the Cartier Santos and the Reverso. Now, square and rectangular shape watch. Oh, it's a tight one. I was leaning towards the Santos, but I've got to say the Reverso just has a little bit of extra versatility with the two options, and but the Cartier does have some rich history. Both of them started as sports watches, so they do come from a similar lineage where the times that have evolved has resulted in them being now considered dress watches. Oh, I got to say that looks pretty good, but I'm going to have to say that the Reverso wins based on versatility, and because the case size is a bit smaller. Proportions of this one and this one only is quite large. I'd say that if it was a medium, I'd probably would have picked it. So the Cartier's gone. Both cushion cases, but I think this is a no-brainer. Price point aside, this just hits, the 1921 just hits more of the criteria that we're after, despite it being a larger size version. And lastly, of this round, whilst the Datejust 36 is a great watch, it does deviate a bit from those classic design cues and the minimalist design. And the Cartier's hitting all the boxes, so the Cartier takes over, and I'm tossing the Rolex. So let's make this the last round. We've got a 3-watch shootout here. And I think the quick elimination has to be the Reverso, because in that last round, it was really difficult choosing between the two because, again, whilst it is a dress watch, it's probably more a sign of the times than it is the actual criteria. It's quite thick. And so I'm putting that aside purely because it did have sports origins. So now we're down to 2. What are you thinking? Both amazing watches. That Vacherin Constantine is just simply sublime. And the Tank Louis. So let's go through the criteria again. One was classic minimalist design. Both ticked the boxes. Clean dial. Both ticked the boxes. Metals and material type. So both are precious metals. So they've elevated and keep above. Sophistication. So they're both hitting that criteria as well. And both come on the leather strap. So my take is that these are both the ideal dress watches for any collection. If you had either of them, you'd be very happy. You know what? I actually think that one of the criteria lets the 1921 down. And I can't believe I'm saying it, but it's to do with case size. If this was, say, a rose gold version with a smaller case size, I'd probably pick it. But the Cartier Tank, it just has history as well. 18 karat gold, classic design, worn by royalty, elegant, has that extra bit with the gold, fits well on the wrist, slides under the sleeve. I think we've got a winner. It's the Cartier Tank Louis. So what do you think? Did I get it right? Leave your picks in the comments. If you like that, please click like and subscribe. And remember, life's short, buy the watch.